Hey guys, we're talking about bank balance sheets today, and it's not anything overly complicated necessarily, but we do got to know what we're doing. And I'm going to do my best without being able to answer questions and show you what's going on to show you how to do this. Okay, I'll link a couple of videos too. Um, anyway, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, what you might see, and again, not knowing how the test is going to be set up, what you might see on there is you're going to see a T chart. All right. And this represents, well, you've got the bank's assets and you're also going to have the bank's liabilities. Okay. Which liabilities in this case are going to be what people can withdraw, right? So usually they're called demand deposits. We usually call them savings accounts, right? So anyway, right now we have a bank that basically is like starting up tomorrow, right? Okay, and they have no deposits or anything that they've got to worry about. Okay, so the first thing that we've got to realize, and we mentioned it last earlier this week, is we have these reserve requirements. Okay, and I set us up at a 10% reserve requirement for this. All right. So first step is somebody's got to deposit some money into the bank. Okay. So we're going to make it $1,000. All right. Now the bank has to do the math and they've got to figure out how much money they're allowed to loan out. Okay. How much money they're allowed to loan out is going to be their excess reserves. They've also got to figure out how much they have to keep in the safe at all times. Okay. Well, 10% of $1,000 is going to be $100. Okay. And they've got to hang on to that all the time, no matter what. Okay. So that means that they now have $900 that they can loan out. Okay. Notice this number 1,000, 100 plus 900 equals 1,000. Okay. So make sure that these equal each other. It's nothing extraordinarily difficult. Okay. But these numbers have to deal with each other, equal each other. Okay, so let's say what you'll have to be able to identify is let's say that somebody takes out a $500 loan, okay? And so whoever that might be, a business, an individual, even the government, right? So we've got this $500 loan, all right? And notice I've just created a new T chart to kind of go along with what we're doing, okay? You could erase and do things, but I'm just trying to make things as clear as possible. So now we've got $500 loaned out to people. Notice our demand deposits are still $1,000, okay? Now, our required reserves on this $1,000, this is what we can always figure out, okay, is that 10% of that 1,000, okay, we have to have still $100 in the safe at all times, okay? Now, a lot of times what they'll ask you is how much money do they still have to loan out, okay? Well, rule stays the same, right? All these numbers, they've got to equal 1,000 in this case. Well, we just loaned out 500 of it. So how much more money does this bank have to loan out to people? Pretty simple. Figure out the difference there. They've got $400 in excess reserves. Okay, another question that they might ask you, all right, is what happens? How much more money does this bank have to loan out if we have a certain amount of a deposit? Okay, so first of all, we're adding a $2,000 deposit. So let's get our right side figured out first. Okay, so our demand deposits, I'm going to label it DD. Okay, that now equals $3,000. Okay, pretty straightforward, easy math, right? So what that means is my required reserves now has to be figured out on 3,000. Okay, so my required reserves are now $300. I took that loan out from the last one. Our loans are still zero. Okay, so that means what are our excess reserves? How much money do we have to loan? Is going to be $2,700. Okay, pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. Once you know what you're looking at, once you know the definition of the terms. Okay, guys, another one for us here. All right, we have some loans taken out here to start. Remember, this here has got to equal what's over here. Okay, so we got to do the same thing down below the blue line. Okay, so we have some loans out already. I can fill that out down here in my bottom part. Okay, and we've got a $5,000 deposit. Okay, so now our demand deposits are going to be $6,000 total dollars. Okay, and remember, we've got to make this equal this over here. Okay, is what we're trying to do. All right, so first, like we said, we've got the loans figured out, okay? The first thing I like to do is figure out the reserve requirement. That's easy. We can always figure that out. We take all of our total assets and we figure that out, multiply it by 0.1, 10%, right? So now our required reserves are $600, okay? Well, now we've got 2 out of the 3. We've got some simple algebra to do, right? 6,000 minus 1,100 should be $4,900, okay? And we have that $4,900 now that we can loan out, okay? Or 4,500 new dollars to loan out, okay? Is sometimes how they want you to word some things, okay? If you can understand this stuff, that's pretty good. I'm going to attach some other videos and explain this a little bit further. We've got one more concept to cover today, and we'll be in pretty good shape. Okay, we've kind of mentioned a couple times, guys, in the past about how if I'm a rich person, so to speak, or if I'm any person, a big conglomerate of people, and there's a lot of money involved, saving the money in your mattress is a bad thing, right? It becomes unavailable to other people, okay? And so we're going to walk through how banks theoretically create money, okay, can create income for other people. A lot very similar to like if the government gives you a $1,000 check, right? You go spend that check and it goes through, the process of being spent throughout the economy, okay? And so anyway, we kept our same $1,000 initial deposit here, okay? And so what's going to happen is somebody's going to put that money in a bank, right? And just up here, Bank A, I know it's tiny, is they now have excess reserves of 900. Remember, their goal is they want to loan out all of that money, okay? Get as close to possible. So we're going to assume that they do that, okay? Now, whoever borrows that money isn't borrowing it to save it in their mattress. That'd be stupid. Money loses value over time. So they're going to spend it, okay? And let's just say whatever they spend it on, maybe I buy a new car with it or a new lawnmower with it, and whoever I buy the lawnmower from, they're going to put that money into a different bank, so to speak, right? So now all of a sudden this bank is getting this $900, right? So they're not getting the full 1,000, okay? But if they get that $900 and their reserve requirement stays up at 10%, which it would, okay, is now what is their required reserves of $900? That's $90. Okay. Now they also have excess reserves. They can loan this money out. Okay. And they can loan out $810 of that. Okay. So this initial deposit of $1,000 to Bank A, right, has now created an asset that Bank B is able to loan out to people. Okay. Oh, not quite 900, but $810. Okay, guys, so I kind of walked through a few more steps here. Again, just to kind of describe them in brief, all right, you can kind of see what's going on, right? So now somebody can borrow this 810 from Bank B. Whoever I buy it from is going to put it in Bank C, theoretically, right? Hypothetically, they have a new required amount, a new required reserve amount, a new excess reserve amount of 720, so they can loan out that 720. That finds its way into Bank D, where Bank D can loan out $651.10. And Bank E can collect that $651. Now they can loan out $590. Now, if we took some time here, we could go through all these steps and get all the way down to, theoretically like $1 deposit or whatever. Okay, but what we want to do is we want to eventually add up all these excess reserves because these are all different loans, right? I might buy a lawnmower from Bank and that money gets deposited in Bank B. Somebody else might buy a snowblower. Somebody else might buy a chainsaw. Somebody else might buy a blower. I don't know, right? And so anyway, all that money starts trickling through the economy, right? And it's created an income for not just this first person that takes a loan, but the person that took a loan from Bank B, Bank C, Bank D, and Bank E, okay? All right, so we have a shortcut on how we can figure out how much money is eventually created here, okay? And the bad thing is it's a formula that we got to remember. The nice thing is this should look halfway familiar, right? This looks like a lot like the spending multiplier, right? 1 over the marginal propensity to save, okay? So it looks a lot like that. We've got to remember 1 stays in the numerator, and then we've got to put this percentage up here, okay, into the denominator. And so it's going to be 1 in this case divided by 0.1 So our spending multiplier is going to be 10. Okay, so we have our initial $1,000 deposit, and I'll show you how we can figure that out. Okay, so what we had in our initial $1,000 deposit, okay, $1,000 deposit is what we've got to know is, okay, we only have the ability, okay, to loan out this $900. This is the one extra step that we've got to do, okay? So we've only created a potential of $900. Now, if the reserve requirement were zero, now we've created a potential of $1,000, right? But the bank can't loan out all of that money, okay? And so when the bank can only loan out that 90%, we've got to remember that this $1,000 deposit can only create $900 new dollars in that first step. Okay, and that's what we're going to multiply by our multiplier here. Okay, so your 900, times 10 equals $9,000. All right, so what we find at the very end here is our initial deposit of $1,000 at 10% reserve requirement equals $9,000 in new money available. Okay. Okay, guys, just one quick practice problem for you here. Okay. So first of all, we've got to assume that we have a $2,000 deposit. All right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it 4 different times. And notice our reserve requirement here is what's changing. Okay. So take a minute, go ahead and try to run through those. Don't forget to take out the required reserves that the bank is not allowed to loan out. Take some practice. I'll show you the answers here quickly. Okay, guys, so hopefully you took some time here. Remember, our initial, we know that the money multiplier is going to change, right? And figuring out the money multiplier is kind of the easy part. That's this column here, right? So we know that that's going to change, all right? What we've got to remember, what the tricky part is we've got to change this amount for the excess reserves, right? These are your excess reserves. We've got to remember to change that. Okay. So again, understanding that, okay, if it's 10%, I can loan out 1,800, 20%, I can loan out 1,600, 1,500, 10, 1,000. Okay. So here's your numbers in case they're too tiny. All right. 18,000 for number 1, 8,000 for number 2, 6,000 for number 3, and 2,000 for number 4. Okay. So that's what we're at today. Again, we, maybe a little bit tricky. We're going to move a little bit forward this on Monday, go a little bit more in depth, really just do some practice problems and how we can apply this to like a recessionary period. And then, by the end of next week, I think we're going to be basically done with our graphs. We'll be able to move forward with some practice. Okay. I appreciate you guys getting stuff turned in. I appreciate that stuff. Some of you guys are a little behind. I'll take stuff late, but you got to start getting it to me. Okay. So anyway, that's what we've got today. I'll attach your assignment to the email, and looking forward to some decent weather this weekend.